Retail pre-patches usually have always lasted about 3 to 4 weeks. For a reason. It gives players enough time to actually catch up. Now, I don't know if you remember, guys, but the original pre-patch for TBC Classic was about as diabolical as former Prince Andrew's personal Gmail. I mean, we had like, what, 2 measly weeks to get our Draenei and Blood Elves leveled up, and the vanilla PvP gear honor costs were so absurd you could only afford about like 2 pieces if you absolutely no-lifed it. That's not classic nostalgia, that's just like unpaid labour at that point. It completely defeated the essence, ethos, mindset, and philosophy, and yes, of a mythology of what a pre-patch is actually supposed to be. Retail pre-patches usually have always lasted about 3 to 4 weeks. For a reason. It gives players enough time to actually catch up, you know? Even if they start playing the moment the patch drops, you know, they could actually get caught up. Imagine that, a system designed for people who don't live in their mum's basement. The joy of a pre-patch is to get to experience the old world, the previous expansion's content with a new class and system changes from the upcoming one. It's like retro gaming, but your character can now cast Shadow Bolt, you know, without collapsing from mana exhaustion. I've always thought that the leveling, you know, through the vanilla world with a TBC patch installed is infinitely better than vanilla's default state, to be honest. There are so much more quests to pad out the empty zones, more quest rewards so it doesn't feel as stingy as Ebenezer Scrooge on Furlough, and those old elite quests no longer demand a full group of 5 players. In vanilla, half the time, you know, you stand outside a cave for like 20 minutes begging in general for someone, anyone, to help you kill Morbent Fell or something like that. In TBC, you could actually complete those elite quests with a party of 2 or 3, which meant you could finally experience some of the best leveling content in the game, the best quests, like the Conquest of Stormwatch Keep, where you storm a fortress of orcs in Redridge, the Den, where you explore a forgotten druid barrow, and Stormgard Keep, home to the Syndicate Bandicoot, maybe Crash Bandicoot's in World of Warcraft now. The Syndicate Bandit Elite and, you know, 2006 finest ganking spot. Those quests were genuinely very fun. Challenging, methodical, requiring a bit of crowd control, buff synergy, and maybe a snack break between pulls. But the best part was when both the factions shared the same objective area. Suddenly the elite mobs weren't the problem, it was the hunter named XXX, Legolas XXX, lurking in the bushes. This is when world PvP happened and it mattered. Rivalries and grudges were forged, alliances formed on the fly. It felt like a living world, not a lifeless matchmaking simulator where you just sit in Stormwind queuing for a dungeon with 4 other random degenerates from different servers. World of Warcraft wasn't always a soulless theme park experience. Once upon a time it was an actual MMO, messy, social, and slightly unhinged. And it's hard to argue that the TBC class changes weren't a massive improvement, even at the lower levels. For instance, Demonology Warlock, they got their talents changed so it didn't just buff their pets, it made the character stronger too. Warriors actually retained 15 rage when switching stances as a default passive ability, and then the Tactical Mastery talent, which extended out further, it wasn't 3 miles down the talent tree, it was at the top. Protection Paladin leveling became way more viable. You could finally experiment with different AoE leveling builds, PvP builds, all sorts of weird viable setups. You didn't just see the same tired old classes and the same tired old roles in Scarlet Monastery. And for once, it wasn't only mages dominating the AoE farming meta. And the same thing applied to endgame dungeons and raiding. It was finally fun to DPS as support specs and not feel as pointless as creating a GM ticket in 2025. Grinding out gear to supercharge your character so he could absolutely steamroll TBC's leveling content was deeply satisfying. Even if everything got replaced in ramparts, who cared? It was fun. The point of it was the power trip. Professions were overhauled to not completely suck. I mean, honestly, why were you still crafting white quality gear at skill 150, you know, in a gear making profession like tailoring at level 20? Like, what was the point of making stuff like that? In TBC, you know, all of these white items were changed to green items with actual stats. Leveling professions actually felt rewarding, especially with dual crafting entering the scene, you know, making everyone rich, confused, or maybe a little bit of both. And the Draenei and Blood Elf leveling zones were absolutely top tier. Worlds better than any vanilla starting area. Better quests, better pacing, more world detail. more immersion, and you could farm a small little reputation for genuinely good low-level gear. If you've never played through Ghostlands, guys, you've missed out one of the best leveling zones Blizzard ever created, to be honest. It even ends with a set of surprisingly badass group quests where you storm a scourge-infested city. Now here's the problem. In the pre-patch, you should be able to work on your main, level up a Blood Elf or Draenei, catch up on your professions, and have a blast in Battlegrounds. But how on earth is anyone, particularly the modern Classic WoW audience who, have to remortgage their house just to take their wife and kids to a Christmas market, supposed to have time for all of that? Because with the previous pre-patch only lasting 2 weeks, most players just had to focus on one goal. Personally, I just focused on getting my character ready, for TBC leveling. You didn't have the time to level a new race or get your main prepared. And people were just demotivated and missed out on content simply because they had jobs, families, and a functioning spine. Rolling an Alliance Shaman or Horde Paladin was seen as a massive sacrifice. It also caused chaos in raid rosters because ideally you want your original raid team from vanilla to continue into tier 4, not spend launch week desperately recruiting Dave's cousin because your enhancement shaman couldn't finish the pre-patch grind in time. You know what I mean? And guilds, they had this issue where you've got your guild members that you've had since Molten Core, and they would have to end up leaving your guild because you couldn't fit them into your roster unless they level the bloody Draenei Shaman. I mean, that was awful. A short pre-patch causes so many unnecessary problems and makes a lot of players miss out on a lot of fun. We need a month-long pre-patch, and Blizzard need to just step up and realise this because it's basic common sense. Oh, and while they're at it, they should reduce the honor cost of level 60 PvP gear because that was just atrociously bad. Alright, well cheers. Anyway, Blizzard, get it done. I'm off. My name is Metagoblin. Until my next video. Ciao.